Hello and welcome to our panel on accessibility in XR. My name is Joe Devon. I'm co-founder of Diamond, an inclusive digital agency, and we do an awful lot of media-related work. I also co-founded Global Accessibility Awareness Day, which is dedicated to bringing awareness to everyone who builds digital products that on the importance of making them accessible to people with disability. We have a fantastic panel. So I'm just going to jump right in and ask each of you to introduce yourself and optionally provide an opening proposition on accessibility in XR, but it's optional. Sheri, you want to start?
Sure. Hi, everybody. My name is Sheri Bernhaber. I founded the accessibility program at VMware and have transitioned into a role there as an accessibility architect in charge of innovation and outreach. I would say my opening statement regarding XR would be, don't wait for the standards to be finalized, extrapolate from what's already out there.
Thank you. Meredith?
Hi, my name is Meredith Ringel Morris, and I am the Research Area Manager for Interaction, Accessibility, and Mixed Reality at Microsoft Research. And my opening thought is that now is really the time to bake in accessibility the right way from the ground up for XR technologies while they're still fluid.
Thank you. Christopher?
Hi, my name is Christopher Patnoe, and I'm the head of accessibility programs and disability inclusion at Google. I'm a white male with pronouns of he and his and a gray soul patch on my chin, despite my daughter's best protestations, with gray hair and black headphones. My statement on accessibility in XR is we need to do it now, because if we don't do it now, we'll miss the opportunity.
Thank you. And Larry?
Hi, I'm Larry Goldberg. I'm the head of accessibility for Verizon Media, a division of the Verizon Corporation, made up of the former Yahoo, AOL, and similar brands. And my proposition is the same of everyone else. We need to make accessibility born accessible in XR. And if XR has already been born, then we need to catch up as soon as possible.
Thank you, Larry. So we're pretty unanimous on this. I think every one of us wants to see that it's born accessible, and hopefully we'll make that happen. So I'm going to ask each of you a question, and then, as you know, I've got a list of questions, but we can kind of make this pretty open-ended and let everybody just make it a conversation if you're willing. So let me start with you, Larry. You've participated in some of the watershed moments in accessibility history, including the popularization of closed captions. Can you speak to how captions had some positive and unintended side effects for the video industry?
It's very interesting, that history of captioning. In the early days, it was a significant amount of advocacy, begging people to put captions on their TV programs. We've reached a point today, it's SOP, standard operating procedure, and not only because of the benefits for deaf and hard of hearing people, which are obvious, and that's why we originally invented them back in public broadcasting, and why there's even laws today that require captions in many environments. But today we're finding that our users are significantly hearing people. People who simply are using two screens, don't want to listen to audio, need text in order to understand what's going on. And that's really what's caused a significant demand today and a significant industry in captioning on every single platform. The unintended effect, you might say, is search engine optimization. Having text you can search on that's attached and indexed to video is a pretty wonderful side effect and not so side anymore. We're really relying on that text attached to podcasts and video in every platform to do discovery, and that's a wonderful additional effect.
Thanks. And as a follow-up, I'll just add, at the airport, I love seeing captions. It's so much easier if you're on a train and you got your phone out, you like to have captions, and sports bars often have lots of loud music, but if you have captions, you can actually follow what's going on pretty well. So the reason I asked you this is, what does captions look like when it comes to mixed reality? Do you have any thoughts?
Sure do. And I'm going to also have my friend Chris Patnoe talk about the work we've been doing in immersive captioning, which is a phenomenally rich group. It's our favorite meeting every 2 weeks. The notion that we have got a beautiful blank slate for how we would like words to appear attached to audio in this virtual world. And we've done some really interesting experiments driven by some prototypes, because the question really is, in a 360 virtual environment, where and how should the captions appear if there are multiple speakers at once? Um, can we give the user choice over so many of these parameters, which we really should do? We can grow captions. We can place them what we call headlocked. They're always right in front of you, or maybe they're not. Maybe as you move your head around, you'll see captions differently. Can you use gestures? Can you use haptics to know, hey, there's someone behind you talking. Hey, go take a look. We've even seen some great implementations where there's a little radar box that can show you where conversations are happening around you, or arrows that point, hey, captions are there, someone's speaking over there. These are all incredible opportunities we have with this technology, and we're going to start implementing them and get some great user testing. And by the way, the group that Chris has put together is mostly deaf people, deaf and hard of hearing people, who are giving tremendous guidance in terms of what we can do with this incredible toolbox we're going to have now.
I have nothing else to say, Larry. You did it all. It is truly my favorite meeting of the time. We have honest conversations about what's useful and what's not useful. It's done respectfully. It's done with deference to the lived experience of people who are deaf and hearing loss, and it's a collaboration with Gallaudet and NAD, Google, Microsoft. Microsoft has been invited. You haven't had a chance to attend. Facebook, we're actually testing in Visor. So we're really trying to do the right thing, get the real experience, and provide options for people to have what they want. Because I think the key thing is that things become customizable. You're never going to get one answer that meets everyone's need.
One thing that I would add on the topic of captions is I know that at the University of Washington, there's a graduate student named Dhruv Jain who identifies as hard of hearing, who's actually been working on experimenting with mixed reality systems for ways to place real-time captioning. I believe he's created his own software on top of the Microsoft HoloLens platform that he actually uses daily in his PhD work in meetings in order to have the lived experience of using mixed reality captions and then to iterate on him with his own innovation.
And we certainly have to tip our hat to the gaming world. They've really laid some great groundwork for us on accessibility across the board. And as XR enters the mainstream in education and employment, we're going to adopt, learn from, and build on the work that folks like Able Gamers have done.
Yeah, definitely a big shout out to Able Gamers. They did some great stuff. Sheri, you are probably the most prolific writer when it comes to accessibility, at least as far as I've seen, always on top of all the news, excellent perspectives that I think a lot of people don't see. We have a unique opportunity to, as everybody would request, see XR to be ahead of the curve, birth a new technology before it gets popular to bake in accessibility. So what are your thoughts on how we can provide the vision and leadership to ensure that that does happen?
Well, I think part of the issue is anytime that you have a new technology, it takes a while for the guidelines to catch up with that technology. And so I think I'm thinking back to my first CSUN. I think it's been 6 years ago that I saw my first presentation at CSUN, which is a big accessibility conference that's held every March, on how to make virtual reality accessible. And so the ideas have been out there for some time, but a lot of the time people want to wait until things are final and then get on the train. And the problem with that is that the train's already left the station, literally, for VR and XR. We've already seen our first 2 lawsuits. They've both been filed in the past month, one against HTC and the other against Oculus. So as Meredith mentioned in her introduction, this is really the tipping point. Now is the time to get on board with this. You know that whatever guidelines come out, they're going to require captioning. So go ahead and figure out how you're going to do captioning and then get it to align with the guidelines when those guidelines do become final. Don't wait until the guidelines become final or it's going to be too late.
For sure. And I think the vision is really an important aspect as well. We're so grateful to the team that allowed us to have an accessibility conversation here at CES, because we're all talking about XR and they did see the importance of doing this. So we're really excited about that. Meredith, I have checked out the accessible mixed reality pages on the Microsoft website. I wish I had more time to check it out because you have so many cool projects. I'm kind of jealous of the work that you're doing. I see you've done haptic and auditory canes in VR, Project Tokyo, audio-based virtual exploration, seeing VR. It's just breathtaking. Can you just speak to the overall mission of your department?
Sure. So we're interested in making sure that the future of mixed reality is an accessible future. And we're toward that end showcasing experiences that may be, on a more of an H3 time horizon, but to really show what might be possible and what to aim toward. So for example, I believe you alluded to our haptic cane troller project, which is a project that aims to show how to make navigating a virtual reality scene accessible to someone who is completely blind and an experienced white cane user. So our goal is to allow a white cane user to transfer their extensive orientation and mobility skills from the real world into the virtual world. And so to that end, we created a 6 degree of freedom haptic force feedback device that simulates the different kinds of haptic and auditory feedback you would receive from a white cane. And we've shown in experiments that with just a short 5 to 10 minute learning curve, people who are blind can navigate virtual settings, identify objects and their properties. We've also looked at making virtual reality accessible to people with low vision, so who may have some residual vision and a variety of different visual abilities. So to that end, we've released the open source Seeing VR Toolkit, which is a set of 14 different tools that can be used in combinations depending on someone's unique visual abilities. So for example, if someone lacks peripheral vision, they can have areas of the virtual scene remapped centrally. If someone has difficulty with contrast or brightness, they can have a scene dynamically recolored to make it more visible to them. And so I think these kinds of systems can help maybe guide ideas for the types of standards and guidelines that we might need to ensure these kinds of experiences in the future.
That's awesome. And from all these projects, which one excites you the most and why?
Well, it's hard to choose just a single project. I think one that is exciting that you mentioned and has been in the news recently is Project Tokyo, which is a project that's looking at how mixed reality hardware and software could actually be used to support experiences, mixed reality experiences for social interaction for children who are blind. For example, directing your attention to where in a room friends might be located if you walk into the school cafeteria so that you can choose where you want to sit and who you want to sit with. And those kinds of social cues that could be provided through augmented and mixed reality.
Interesting. Yeah, from attending a bunch of accessibility events, something that I often hear is, can you point me to the door? I just want to know the general direction of the door, or where's the restroom? It'd be interesting to have that kind of situation as a haptic wearable or something like that. But I think that's still a little bit off. Now I'm going to turn to you, Christopher. I love your LinkedIn social media account. You must be using some mixed reality haptic that like sends you brain, hey, there's a great article on accessibility or XR or just a cool new technology. I just love to know from you, what do you see as the future of XR and how it relates to accessibility, wearables, haptics, headsets, contacts, and if you have anything that you can speak about that your company is doing, feel free as well.
Yeah, I have to admit, I probably steal my favorite ideas from art and television and books. I mean, for me, the long-term goal is Geordie LaForge, with the visor that gives them these powers that people other people can't have. More near term, I'm really fascinated by the Ready Player 2 book that just got published. I was just telling Larry about this, I think, yesterday, where the Accessibility Research Lab literally created the technology that was vital for the creation of a neuro interface that brought people inside VR. And for me, that is like the ultimate curb cut. You create these things that just utterly transform your mind, allowing you to record your memories and play it back. Just a fantastic story. Probably never going to happen, but I love the fact that accessibility was really brought as the engine for the kind of innovation necessary to bring that together. So for me, that's where I see the future going, in which accessibility is the on-ramp to new technology. But for me, I don't fixate on any one kind of technology, because I think they all are single boxed, and people are sectional, people are complicated and have different things. For me, the real future of interface is multimodal. You're going to have a user experience that is experienced by different people in different ways. And ideally, we wouldn't have to code it in such a way that you have to, okay, if you have a haptic, have this path. If I have visual, I have this path. We need to come with some kind of language that can be interpreted by the interface system that allows us to create our own reality based off the visual, auditory, other kind of inputs. There's no way we're going to get it to work otherwise. It has to just happen for free. We can't expect people to code for it. It reminds me of if there's the blind page and the non-blind web page. The blind page always goes out. It has to be the real thing, and we create the environment around the real thing and interpret it based off of our abilities. So for me, that's the really interesting thing of the future of interface, is that it's you. You become the interface, and we need to create the environment that allows it to be interpreted.
I couldn't agree more. And I think towards emerging standards in the future, the ability to incorporate these different kinds of metadata on objects in XR so that the objects can be rendered through whatever combination of modalities is appropriate, whether it's visual, auditory, haptic, or other techniques. So just wanted to second the importance of the multimodal rendering.
And personalization on top of that, because some people love haptics, some people hate them. Some people love motion. Motion makes me motion sick. So the ability for people to customize their own environments to what works for them. And I always say that somebody who thinks that separate but equal is okay, it's always separate, but it's never equal.
You know, I'm a big fan of Mythbusters. And I think we've all seen the T-shirt for Adam, who says, "I reject your reality and substitute my own." Yeah, that's personalization, and we can and will be doing that through when we design these systems. They will have to be personalizable.
That's the beauty of XR. You're recreating physics, right? So you want to recreate physics. Every individual has their personalization, and personalization means some people have better vision, some people have better hearing, et cetera, et cetera. And you really have to personalize that. And you're only going to get it right if you bring accessibility into the conversation early. It actually, Go ahead.
If I may, I'd like to tweak that a little bit, given the political climate we've recently been experiencing. You need to interpret reality. You can't have, each person can't have their own reality. There has to be an interpretation of the reality. It's a personalization of reality, not a different reality. It's slightly different, but it's an important difference in my mind.
Yeah, that's an interesting one as well. Yeah. I also wanted to touch on what you had said earlier, Christopher, because I loved Ready Player One, listened to it on Audible, it was fantastic. Can't wait for listening to the next one. But when it comes to memories, I always tell people, what is the blockage in terms of life extension? And with life extension, you can fix all your limbs. Let's say we have the DNA that figured out how to create your limbs to begin with. So let's say we can cure every virus, we can regenerate everything, be young again. The one thing that we are not rated for is unlimited memory. We have a limited hard drive, and therefore the only way to actually extend life is going to be to store your memories outside your brain, which then becomes hackable and enters a whole other range of problems, which I'm waiting for a sci-fi writer to really delve into. So it sounds like I finally get to read that in Ready.
Well, Joe, you're talking about 5G wireless, and just store your memories outside of your body. Upload your brain
what could
and
go
download
wrong?
when needed. Yeah, what could go wrong?
Exactly. It's great. Trust me. So this leads to a question for everyone. In your opinion, do accessibility requirements or paying attention to accessibility, does that inhibit innovation, as so many people say, or does it actually spur it on?
Well, you know, this panel is going to say that there are no more creative people in the world of technology than ones who are developing accessibility workarounds and leaping over the barriers. And we've all experienced some incredible creativity around spotting where there might be some barrier and then finding some great ways around it. And that's why accessibility becomes a incubator for innovation and far from being a block. I think, you know, that's kind of almost an old notion. It used to be, oh man, I have to stop in my place. I have to do some prosthetic looking design. That's just not true anymore. And we're finding just such great innovation in the field that's being borrowed. Uh, Captioning, of course, being one of them. But what we come up with in the field of XR accessibility, I think, is going to be a rich minefield for startups and places, not minefield, sorry, a mine for people to be borrowing and looking at new concepts.
And it's not just the developers that are creative problem solvers. There's no more creative problem solving group in the world than people with disabilities, and especially people with long-standing disabilities who have developed very robust compensation mechanisms. When you involve those people in providing input into the design and MVP selection process, you're going to end up with a better product in the end for everybody and not just for people with disabilities.
Yeah, I think an important concept here is the concept of situational impairment or temporary impairment. So of course, there's a very large population of people who have longer term disabilities. The World Health Organization estimates about 1 billion people worldwide. But every single one of us, even if we don't identify as disabled, experiences disability even throughout the course of a single day and will then be able to benefit from accessible interface designs. So for example, if I want to use an extended reality headset in a space constrained environment, say on an airplane, if we can ever fly again, innovations that might benefit people with limited mobility would also benefit me in that situation. And so I think this kind of innovation is important for everybody.
It's also important from the practical perspective, because where we're using, or where a lot of people are using VR today is in corporate settings, for example, onboarding and colleague experience. And if you don't make that accessible, you're contributing to the problem that, you know, people with disabilities have a 2.5 times unemployment rate of people without disabilities. If it's going to be used in the education setting, you know, we talk about sometimes the pipeline problem, and the pipeline itself is a little bit of a myth. But if VR and XR are going to be used for K-12 and post-secondary education, people with disabilities need to be able to access that, or we're going to continually be behind people without disabilities in having access to the innovations that result from that and the opportunities as well.
Piggybacking from the Ready Player 2, the creativity that it takes to solve problems is the engine that drives, I think, all of us in this room. Just it is a rich problem set that we need to solve, and none of us here are going to solve it for everybody. So we have to bring people in. It's the never about us without us. We have to bring people who have the different experiences, who've solved problems that we didn't even know existed. That's for me is the interesting innovation within accessibility. It is, I mean, I have a torn rotator cuff right now. I can't raise my arm, so I'm thinking, okay, how am I going to wash my hair? How am I going to brush my teeth? It is these small things that make you realize that of the mismatch of the world that we have together. Sort of quoting Kat Holmes' great book, it's the mismatch of people's abilities and the culture around us that supports us, and that's the problem we need to solve.
Well said. We are towards the end of the conversation, but we still have a little bit more time. But I wanted to allow people to actually take this beyond the actual panel. So are there any hashtags that people should follow on social media or newsletters or anything that you'd like to point people to? And this is open for anybody.
Well, XR Access is an organization that we're all part of now, formed from a very fortuitous relationship we had with a professor, Sheri at Cornell Tech. And we've attracted so much excitement and energy. So you can look at xraccess.org and hashtag XR Access. Just finished a major strategic planning process, and this organization is going to try to be a magnet, a catalyst, and a gathering place for all this great work. And people can come see what's going on. And we have every intention of pushing this field really far forward. And all of the ideas you've heard today, the resources will be there, all that what Microsoft and Google and Facebook and everyone else is doing will be there for people to see, do some research. And so I think what we're going to be able to grapple with now, we finally have an institution, an initiative that we can all join in on.
Awesome.
Can another good hashtag, which I've just started recently, is hashtag DCX for Disabled Customer Experience, to look at the things that day to day impact people with disabilities, where they've had good customer experience and what that's all about, and where they've had bad customer experience and what could have been done better.
Thank you.
I would recommend, of course, the general hashtag A11Y for anything accessibility related. I'd also say if people are looking for interesting folks to follow on social media to see what's happening in academia at the forefront of these topics, Larry already mentioned Sheri from Cornell University. Also, there's Yuhong Zhao, who's a professor at the University of Wisconsin. I mentioned earlier Dhruv Jain, who's doing the work on deaf accessibility at the University of Washington. Also Cynthia Bennett, who is a postdoc at Carnegie Mellon. They would all be great people to follow on social media to keep abreast of some of the latest developments in these areas.
Thank you.
And there is the XRA, the XR Association. It is. I am the co-chair of the Accessibility Working Group there, and they've just recently published some interesting material in collaboration with XR Access, and that's another place to look at for information.
Great. And follow Christopher Patnoe on social media. You'll see lots of those articles and Sheri blog on Medium. And I don't know if you have anything beyond the Meredith, what is it, accessibility and mixed reality page. If you have anything like blog or anything like social related.
Yeah, so if you want to learn more about the work of the Microsoft Research Ability team and our Accessible Mixed Reality Initiative, our website is aka.ms/MSR Ability. And on that site are videos and blog posts showcasing some of the developments from Microsoft in this space.
Great. And then Larry has XR Access. Anything else you wanted to add to that from you personally?
Well, I misheard you earlier, Joe, and you talked about baked-in accessibility, and now I'm thinking bacon accessibility. I'm looking at a great logo now, getting access to bacon, but don't look that one up yet.
Okay. So I wanted to make sure that we got that out of the way first, but now I'm going to let each of you give us your final thoughts.
Sure, I can kick it off. I guess one kind of final thought is thinking broadly about accessibility. You know, earlier we spoke about some of our team's work on accessibility of mixed reality for people with vision impairment, but looking forward, we're also thinking about accessible mixed reality for people who are deaf and hard of hearing, accessible mixed reality for people with limited mobility, and of course for people with combinations and intersections of varying disabilities. And so I think there's a lot more to be done in this space that I'm very excited about.
Thank you.
And I would just love to see anyone who with ideas for use cases on applications of exploitation of this great technology, as well as how XR marries 5G so that you can be free and open to using these new technologies out on the street and in the world. And we're very hungry for some great accessibility, disability-oriented use cases.
I would say my final thought is that accessibility is never accidental. If you don't know if you're doing it or not, chances are you're not doing it. So to make sure that you really invest the time and the energy and start addressing accessibility issues as early in the ideation process as you can, to make sure that you then get an accessible design, which then you make sure you get implemented in an accessible manner and reviewed by the people with the disabilities who have the lived experience that are going to be using your products.
Thank you.
And I guess my last thought is I'm just optimistic about where things are going. We have years of experience from our friends at Microsoft, from our friends in the gaming industry that we can lean on. And we have momentum. And we need to take advantage of the momentum and push ourselves to get this done sooner than later. Because at some point, you're going to have the glasses out there. At some point, you're going to have earbuds that can do everything that you need. We're not ready for it yet, but we have time and we have momentum and we have the right people thinking about it. Now is the time to participate. If you want to do it, come join.
Thank you so much to each and every one of you. I really enjoyed every minute of it. I could have gone on for another hour or two, to be honest, but hopefully we'll have that opportunity in the future. So thank you once again. Thanks to the team that allowed us to share accessibility in XR. And we will see you in person next year at CES, I hope. And with that, I will bow out and say goodbye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.